Hello, friend, and welcome to the Renaissance English History Podcast, a part of the Agora Podcast Network and the original Tudor History Podcast, telling stories of Tudor England since 2009. I am your host, Heather, and I'm a storyteller who makes history accessible because I believe it's a pathway to understanding who we are, our place in the universe, and being much more deeply connected to our own humanity. So, this is episode 269. I don't even know why I say that in the beginning anymore because I've clearly lost count. But we are going to talk about something that is not directly related to Tudor England today, but something that I am fascinated with. And because it's my podcast, I get to do that. And that is Leonardo da Vinci and his flying machines. Because while it didn't happen in Tudor England, we're going to talk about what the Tudors would have known of Leonardo da Vinci and his flying machines, and how they would have seen that, and just how it was similar to the Renaissance spirit that was taking over all of Europe at that time. So we're going to dig into that. A quick welcome to some of the newest YouTube members. Welcome to Sugar and Jackie and Anna. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can always click join this channel to get extra content, mini casts, author chats, mini audio courses, depending on what level you're at, all kinds of ways to really immerse yourself in Tudor England. So check that out. You can also join on Patreon to get basically the same stuff, and that is patreon.com/EnglandCast. All right, let's get into it. Few names evoke the spirit of Renaissance innovation quite like Leonardo da Vinci. He was born in 1452, and his insatiable curiosity and unparalleled artistic talent made him a polymath whose legacy stretches across disciplines. While he is best known for masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, his notebooks reveal an ambitious, almost fantastical dream, which is to conquer the skies. Long before the Wright brothers or hot air balloons, Leonardo explored the principles of flight with meticulous detail, blending art, anatomy, and engineering into a vision that was centuries ahead of its time. Leonardo's fascination with flight began, as so much of his work did, with nature. He was captivated by birds, marveling at how they soared effortlessly through the air. His notebooks, particularly the Codex on the Flight of Birds, reveal careful observations of their anatomy and their movement. He studied how wings folded and extended, how air currents carried the birds aloft, and how different species achieved flight through unique mechanisms. One of Leonardo's sketches even includes detailed drawings of bird musculature, showing how he dissected birds to understand their mechanics. He noted that flight was not simply a matter of flapping wings. It required balance, control, and a precise interplay of forces. Leonardo's Codex on the Flight of Birds is considered maybe the most important document about flight on Earth. And in 2012, they scanned a copy of it and landed it on Mars attached to the Curiosity rover, which is super cool. Leonardo's most famous flying design is the ornithopter, a device that aimed to mimic the flapping motion of bird wings. The machine was to be powered by human effort, with an operator lying face down, using their arms and legs to move the wings. The sketches show elaborate pulley systems and levers designed to maximize efficiency and mimic the powerful downstroke of a bird's wing. However, there were inherent challenges. The ornithopter's design required the human operator to generate enough force to lift both their body weight and the machine itself. Given the materials available in Leonardo's time, primarily wood and canvas, it would have been impossible for a human to generate the necessary power-to-weight ratio. Despite this limitation, the ornithopter design demonstrated an understanding of aerodynamics and mechanics that was revolutionary for the period. Perhaps even more ambitious was Leonardo's aerial screw, a precursor to the modern helicopter. This device consisted of a spiral-shaped structure resembling a massive screw designed to be rotated manually. Leonardo theorized that the screw shape would bite into the air and create lift, much like a screw burrowing into wood. While the aerial screw was far from practical, it lacked an engine or any means of sustaining rotation. It did show Leonardo's ability to think in 3 dimensions. His sketches of the device often included cross-sections and annotations, indicating an understanding of how forces would interact with the structure. Modern engineers have tested small-scale models of the aerial screw, confirming that while it could generate some lift, it wasn't capable of true flight. Still, it definitely shows Leonardo's ability to imagine solutions that were centuries ahead of his time. In addition to machines designed to achieve flight, Leonardo also considered how humans might descend safely from great heights. His parachute design, sketched in the late 15th century, featured a pyramid structure made of linen stretched over a wooden frame. In his notes, he claimed that this device would allow a man to throw himself down from any great height without injury. Modern tests of Leonardo's parachute have validated his claim. In 2000, the British skydiver Adrian Nicholas built a replica of the design using period-accurate materials and successfully used it to descend from a hot air balloon. While it was heavier and less maneuverable than modern parachutes, it worked as Leonardo described, proving his deep understanding of aerodynamics and physics. While Leonardo's flying machines were visionary, they were ultimately constrained by the technology of his time. He lacked any kind of lightweight material like aluminum or strong propulsion systems like engines, which are needed for sustained flight. His designs were also limited by a lack of formal understanding of aerodynamics. Concepts like lift and drag were not fully explored until centuries later after the Enlightenment. But his flying machines weren't just fantasies. They were grounded in careful observation, detailed engineering, and a relentless drive to understand the natural world. More than just sketches, they represent the true Renaissance spirit, a belief that human ingenuity could overcome the boundaries of nature. The dream of flying extended beyond Leonardo da Vinci, capturing the imaginations of other Renaissance thinkers, engineers, and daredevils. While many attempts at flight remain firmly in the realm of myth or failed experimentation, they show the boldness and ambition of this period. One of the most dramatic stories of early flight comes from Giovanni Battista Danti, who lived from 1527 to 1580. He was an Italian mathematician, engineer, and artist. So, supposedly, according to legend, Danti, inspired by the possibility of human flight, created a pair of mechanical wings and strapped them to his arms. His goal was to glide from the top of a tower in Perugia, Italy, soaring through the air like a bird. The account of his flight, if it happened at all, is hazy and the details vary. Some say he managed to glide a short distance before crashing. Others claim that the experiment ended almost as soon as it began. Whether a partial success or an outright failure, Dante's supposed attempt at flight shows this Renaissance spirit of experimentation. Scholars debate whether this event was real or exaggerated by later writers, but the story has endured as a symbol of human daring. Dante's reputation as a polymath adds credibility to this story. He was deeply involved in mechanical engineering and was known for designing and constructing astronomical instruments, including a massive gnomon, which was a type of sundial, for Florence's Santa Maria Novella. While it's uncertain whether he actually attempted to fly, the legend reflects the era's willingness to embrace high-risk, high-reward experiments in the pursuit of knowledge. While Giovanni Battista Danti's story may lean toward myth, Fausto Veranzio, who lived from 1551 to 1617, shows a more grounded and maybe more realistic contribution to the history of flight. So Veranzio was a Croatian polymath. He was fascinated by mechanics, hydraulics, and human engineering. In his book Machine Novae, published in 1615, he described a parachute-like device called Homo Volans, or flying man. His design featured a square, sail-like canopy attached to a harness, which he believed could slow a person's descent from a great height. Unlike Leonardo's pyramid parachute, Veranzio's design was simpler and more closely resembled a modern parachute. His writings suggest he had a clear understanding of how drag could counteract gravity, allowing for a controlled descent. There are accounts, though not definitively proven, that he tested the parachute himself. According to one story, he jumped from the bell tower of St. Mark's Basilica in Venice and landed safely. So I should say there's no historical evidence to confirm this very dramatic event, but modern tests of the design show that it could indeed work. Like Leonardo's parachute, it relied on period materials like linen and wood, which are clunky by today's standards, but it did, again, show remarkable foresight. In the 16th century, attempts at human flight occupied a curious space between science, art, and the mystical. For many, the idea of flight was associated with divine or supernatural power. Remember, this is also when people are still dedicated to finding the philosopher's stone and turning base metals into gold. So angels and cherubs were commonly depicted in religious art, soaring gracefully through the heavens. Human efforts to replicate this feat could be seen as an act of hubris or a demonstration of God-given ingenuity, depending on which way you want to look at it. The church's influence on scientific exploration was significant, and some experiments in flight might have been viewed as heretical or dangerous. There's, of course, the image of Icarus, the mythological figure who flew too close to the sun, and that was a cautionary tale that was often evoked in Renaissance art and literature. The idea that human ambition could overreach and lead to disaster was a theme that was woven into the cultural fabric of this period. At the same time, the Renaissance celebrated invention and the rediscovery of ancient knowledge. The writings of figures like Archimedes and the hero of Alexandria inspired engineers to think boldly. The fascination with alchemy, the blending of science and mysticism also fueled dreams of flight. Alchemists sought to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, and the quest for human flight fit within this framework. The broader public likely viewed these flight attempts with a mix of awe and skepticism. For most people, the concept of flight was entirely outside their lived experience, something that belonged to birds, angels, and mythological figures. Yet the stories of men like Dante and Veranzio hinted at a tantalizing possibility that human beings might one day join the creatures of the air. Together, the stories of Dante and Veranzio reveal the daring and creativity of the Renaissance. Neither achieved sustained flights, but their efforts captured the spirit of the age. The quest for flight symbolized humanity's growing confidence in its ability to understand and manipulate the forces of nature. It wasn't a question of if humans would fly, but when. So let's bring that back to Tudor England. Tudor England is not typically associated with any attempts at flight, but the intellectual and cultural ties between Renaissance England and the broader European context suggest that these ideas may have reached the Tudor courtiers and scholars. The Tudors were part of a dynamic age of discovery and invention, one in which ambitious ideas like flight circulated among courts, universities, and workshops of Europe. Though there's no evidence of flying machines being constructed in Tudor England, the concepts underpinning them would not have been entirely foreign. Tudor England had strong connections to the cultural currents of the Renaissance, which were driven by these figures like Da Vinci and Veranzio. Diplomats, merchants, and explorers served as conduits for these ideas, bringing back tales of technological marvels, sketches of machines, and even first-hand accounts of experiments. Henry VIII's court, for instance, was deeply influenced by continental humanism. Artists like Hans Holbein, brought to England by Henry, worked within a broader network of European intellectual exchange. Also, there were people like Juan Luis Vives, who was a humanist who was brought to the court to teach Mary I, had a whole idea of what children's education should be like, and he came from this continental humanist background. We had people like Thomas More. So England was definitely circulating these ideas. The Tudors also maintained relationships with the Italian states, where much of the innovation in flight originated. England's scholars and diplomats encountered manuscripts containing sketches of Leonardo's designs, probably, or heard stories of his legendary intellect. By the late Tudor period, books like Veranzio's Machine Novae were circulating, sparking interest in mechanical and engineering advancements. While this book was published after Elizabeth's reign in 1615, the groundwork for these exchanges was laid in the Tudor period. If there was a figure in Tudor England likely to have entertained the possibility of human flight, it would have been John Dee. We've done episodes on John Dee. He was a mathematician, astronomer, had the largest library in Europe, came up with Elizabeth's coronation date using astrology. He was a mystic, often referred to as one of the most learned men of his age. Deeply interested in understanding the natural world, his library had books on mechanics, mathematics, and alchemy. Though there is no direct evidence that Dee explored the concept of flight, his fascination with human potential and the limits of nature make it very possible, even plausible, that he would have been intrigued by the idea. His interest in navigation and cartography, fields that required precise mathematical calculations, might have aligned with the principles of aerodynamics being explored on the continent. Also, his interactions with European scholars and his reputation as an intellectual bridge between England and the continent suggest that he would have been aware of the broader Renaissance fascination with flight. The Tudor court loved spectacle, and flight would have fit perfectly into the culture of marvels and pageantry. Henry VIII's court in particular was known for hosting elaborate feasts and entertainments that showcased the latest technological and artistic achievements. The idea of a flying device, or even a dramatic demonstration of a parachute, would likely have captivated Tudor audiences. One can imagine the reaction of courtiers had they witnessed a figure descending from a tower or a mechanical bird soaring above the tournament grounds. Such displays would have aligned with Henry's taste for grandeur and his desire to present himself as the embodiment of Renaissance kingship. Elizabeth's court similarly embraced dramatic performances and displays of ingenuity, often as part of masques and celebrations. You think about the famous time that Robert Dudley was trying to woo her at Kenilworth, and he had this whole elaborate thing set up in the lake where a clamshell came out and then came up from the bottom of the lake, and inside there were musicians in the clamshell. No idea how they did that, but that's the kind of thing that fascinated the Tudors and the Elizabethans. While no record of flight-related entertainments exist, the Tudors were eager to adopt and adapt ideas that elevated their cultural prestige. If flying devices had been demonstrated on the continent, it's likely that someone in the Tudor court would have tried to replicate or import the concept. So while Tudor England lacked its own Leonardo, the intellectual and cultural climate was ripe for such ideas. The Tudors' connection to the Renaissance, combined with their love of spectacle and their growing engagement with science and technology, makes you think that flight would not have been beyond their imagination. The 16th century was an age of exploration and rediscovery where humanity sought to overcome boundaries, geographical, intellectual, and physical. The dream of flight perfectly encapsulated this Renaissance spirit, showing not only the desire to conquer the skies, but also the broader quest to understand and harness the forces of nature. Flight wasn't just a technical challenge, it was a symbol of humanity's growing confidence in its ability to master the natural world. Just like the early explorers like Columbus, Magellan, all of the explorers sought to map uncharted territories, inventors aimed to chart new frontiers in physics and mechanics. The desire to fly reflected the same impulse that drove Renaissance thinkers to challenge the limits of medieval knowledge and embrace the possibilities of the human mind. The Renaissance was also a period of innovation in fields like geometry, anatomy, and engineering, which laid the groundwork for future advancements in flight. At the same time, flight carried a cautionary tale of humanity that was filled with too much hubris. Renaissance art and literature often depicted Icarus as a symbol of ambition and unchecked wisdom. This duality, the dream of flight, the dream of conquering nature, paired with the risk of overachieving, shows the complexity of Renaissance thought, which celebrated human potential while acknowledging its limits. So the Renaissance dream of flight was as much about imagination as it was about engineering. It showed a profound optimism in human potential, a belief that no challenge was too great for ingenuity and determination. Imagine the courage it took for someone like Giovanni Battista Danti to strap on wings and leap from a tower, or the meticulous effort Leonardo da Vinci poured into studying the mechanics of birds. These weren't just dreams, they were bold experiments grounded in the belief that humans could transcend their earthly limits. And even when those attempts ended in failure, they pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. So we will leave it there for this episode. If you are flying this holiday season, when you board your plane, why not think for a moment about Leonardo da Vinci's flying machines and the 16th century fascination with flight that kind of opened the box and made it all happen. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back again next week. And until then, have a fantastic holiday season if you're celebrating, and be well. I will speak with you soon. Bye-bye.